Have you ever walked into a room, felt the air shift, and left feeling like your soul needed a detox? That wasn't your imagination. That was energy. Dark, draining, and deliberately directed at you. Sometimes the people who smile the widest are hiding the sharpest teeth. They don't need a pitchfork to be dangerous, just your trust. You think you're playing a friendly game of chess until you realize your opponent is the devil in disguise, whispering your move. Let's be honest, some people are so toxic. It makes you wonder if they're hiding horns beneath that polished haircut and perfect smile. Ever felt utterly exhausted after spending time with them? Like you need a spiritual shower just to wash off their presence? That's not you being dramatic. Sometimes it's not just bad vibes. It's a full-blown spiritual attack with a charming face. And here's the twist. You actually like them. You trust them. You open your heart, your home, your secrets, until one day the mask slips, and you realize you've been breaking bread with someone sent to break you. They don't carry a pitchfork. They carry influence, and they use it to play psychological games with angelic politeness. Today, I'm revealing 5 unmistakable signs that someone in your life wasn't sent by heaven, but by something much darker. These aren't just bad friends. These are spiritual Trojan horses. They smile while stealing your peace, chipping away at your self-worth, and planting seeds of self-doubt until you no longer recognize yourself. So grab your coffee, or maybe holy water, because what you're about to learn could save you years of emotional damage and more than a few therapy sessions. If you're tired of being manipulated in the name of love, if you're ready to see through the mask, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment that says, I see the signs. Let's shine some light on the darkness together. Sign number 1. They encourage you to sin, then laugh while you fall. None of us are perfect. We slip, we stumble, and yes, sometimes we drag ourselves through the mud, willingly. The humble admit it, the proud deny it. But here's what matters most, how the people around us respond when we fall. The good ones? They don't cheer. They don't enable. They call us out, sometimes sharply, because they want to see us rise again. That's what love does. It tells the truth even when it stings. But there's another kind of person, and they're far more dangerous. They don't come with warning signs. No red flags, no chaos. In fact, they seem like the best kind of friend. The fun one, the supportive one, the one who gets you. Their gift is subtle sabotage. They won't push you into the fire. They'll clap when you jump. They don't say, destroy yourself. They say, live a little. You start eating clean, skipping sugar, cutting back on alcohol. You feel better, stronger. And then comes the soft attack. Oh, come on, you're no fun anymore. Just one slice of cake. Let me pour you a drink. You've earned it. They frame your discipline as dull, your boundaries as selfish, your healing as a burden. I remember a man I once knew. Let's call him Robert. He was magnetic, charming, hilarious. The kind of guy who could make anyone feel at ease. When I first got sober, trying hard to change my life, Robert was the first to raise a glass and say, one drink won't kill you. He'd buy it before I could say no, smiling like it was all in good fun. At first, I thought he was being supportive in his own way. But after one devastating binge, one I swore I'd never repeat, I saw the truth. Robert wasn't helping me stay strong. He needed me to stay weak, because if I got better, if I got free, he'd have to face the parts of himself he was avoiding. As long as I was falling, he didn't have to look in the mirror. The truth we just uncovered about Robert and people like him is only the beginning. Because their power doesn't lie in shouting. It lies in subtle erosion, a slow unraveling of your strength, disguised as gentle concern. That's the psychology of these people. They don't just tolerate your missteps, they feed off them. Your failure makes them feel better about staying stagnant. Your relapse, your breakdown, your compromise, those validate the choices they're too afraid to change in themselves. You see, misery doesn't just love company. It loves compliant company. People who won't challenge the status quo. People who keep wandering instead of walking away. And here's where it gets dangerous. They don't dress it up in obvious sabotage. They don't yell, "Go wreck your life." They whisper things like, "Don't be so hard on yourself." Right when you're about to repeat the very decisions that nearly destroyed you. What they call compassion is actually quiet corrosion. It's not just about one moment of weakness. It's about gradually softening your resolve until you no longer recognize your own standards. The Stoics warned us about this. Your mind, your judgment, is your fortress. And once the gate is cracked, once you start justifying small compromises, it's only a matter of time before you're led far from who you once were. As Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." But how can you be master of yourself when your guard is down? And the enemy is smiling? And the cruel irony? These people aren't always villains in the classic sense. They're not all evil. They're often just lost. They're scared of change, terrified even. So when they see you trying to rise, to grow, to change, they panic. They press your buttons. They downplay your convictions. They manipulate through familiarity and trust. And most heartbreaking of all, they might be the ones you love most, a sibling, a spouse, a lifelong friend. So how do we deal with them? Do we fight them? Expose them? Lecture them into growth? No. Stoicism teaches us something far more powerful. It tells us to remove the illusion, to see clearly, without hate, without excuse. You don't rage. You don't force. You draw boundaries. Calm, firm, non-negotiable. You choose which conversations to entertain, which temptations to shut down, which invitations to walk away from. And when necessary, you do what must be done. You leave. Because protecting your mind, your character, your inner peace is not selfish. It's survival. I'm not saying this to make you paranoid. I'm saying it to help you prepare. Think carefully now. Is there someone in your life who claps when you lower your standards? Someone who laughs at your better judgment and calls it too much? If so, that is the first sign. The light bulb moment. Recognition is the first act of freedom, and in the next part, we'll go deeper. We'll talk about how to set boundaries. The kind that are respectful, but unshakable, even when the person pressing in is someone you love. Because loving someone doesn't mean following them into the dark. Sign number 2. They invalidate your feelings and manipulate you through deception. Here's what most people learn too late. Some of the most destructive forms of manipulation don't come dressed in cruelty. They show up wearing concern, loyalty, even love, and that's what makes them so dangerous. They don't push. They steer gently, subtly, until one day you look in the mirror and barely recognize who you've become. These tactics don't feel like red flags at first. They feel like small conversations, loving advice, concerned questions. They don't scare you away, they make you stay, and perhaps the most common doorway in is emotional invalidation. It starts like this. You bring up a concern. You share something that hurt you, and they say, "You're overreacting. You're too sensitive. You always take things the wrong way." And slowly you begin to question your reality. Was it really a big deal? Maybe I'm just being dramatic. Maybe I should just let it go. They don't need to control you directly. They just need you to stop trusting your own voice, and once you do, the manipulation deepens. The manipulation we discussed earlier rarely starts with shouting. It begins with subtlety, quiet dismissals of your feelings, gentle distortions of your truth. But as it deepens, it transforms into something far more suffocating, control disguised as care. It often sounds like love, but feels like a slow loss of self. It gets worse. Because before you know it, that same person who once whispered, "I just want what's best for you," starts deciding who you can spend time with, where you go, even how you should feel. And they'll never raise their voice. No threats, no ultimatums, just a calm, steady conviction that they know better than you do. At first, it doesn't feel like control. It feels like protection. But soon it becomes a cage built out of soft words and guilt. I've seen this happen to people in their 50s, even 60s, men and women with decades of wisdom behind them, reduced to walking on eggshells around someone who claims to love them. They stop seeing lifelong friends because it upsets their partner. They stop going to family gatherings because it causes drama. And one day, they wake up and realize the only voice they hear is the manipulator's. It doesn't happen in one dramatic fall. It happens in tiny nudges. Not a shove off a cliff, but a 1-degree shift repeated over and over until you're completely off course. And don't even know how you got there. This form of manipulation doesn't stem from love. It stems from insecurity and a deep hunger for control. They don't want love that's given freely. They want loyalty they can command. So they begin shaping your reality to match their own. Not with cruelty, but with what seems like tenderness. I'm only trying to help you. You know I care more than anyone. No one else understands. You like I do. But each of those phrases chips away at your independence. Until eventually you don't argue back. Not because you agree, but because you're too emotionally exhausted to challenge their version of reality. And that is exactly what they want. But Stoic philosophy offers a different way to respond. A clearer, stronger path. The Stoics teach us that while we may not be able to control others' actions, we must protect our own minds fiercely. As Epictetus wrote, we are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. And the manipulator, their goal is to take over those views, to convince you that their perception is the only truth. But awareness breaks the spell. When you start recognizing the tactics for what they are, manipulation, not concern, you take your mind back. And with it, your peace. Yes, it's hard, especially when the person pulling the strings is someone you deeply love. But healing begins when you trust your own perceptions again. When you honor your boundaries, even when they call you selfish or cold for doing so. It means surrounding yourself with relationships built on mutual respect, not control, where disagreement isn't punished, where your autonomy is valued, not feared. So if this sounds familiar, if you see these patterns in your own life, please don't blame yourself. That's part of the manipulation. It was meant to be invisible. But the fact that you're starting to see it, that you're questioning it, that's not weakness. That's the first act of freedom. And in the next part, we're going to talk about practical ways to set firm, respectful, and unbreakable boundaries. Because protecting your mind isn't just a survival tactic. It's an act of radical, necessary love for yourself and for the life you deserve to live. Sign number 3. They sow discord and create division. Some of the most damaging people in our lives aren't the ones who scream, threaten, or openly declare themselves enemies. No. The most dangerous ones are often those who wear the label of friend. They pull you in close, cloak themselves in concern, and then, quietly, gently, they start planting seeds. Seeds of doubt, seeds of division. They're not loud. They don't cause scenes. They specialize in subtle sabotage. At first, it sounds like genuine conversation. A little gossip here, a warning there. But each word carries a weight, a shadow, a wedge, until slowly the people you once trusted begin to feel distant. By the time you realize what's happening, the damage is already done. And that same person who caused it, they've already moved on to their next performance of loyalty and concern. In the next section, we'll break down exactly how these people operate and how to recognize their pattern before it isolates you for good. We saw how manipulators whisper doubts that slowly isolate you from your truth and the people you love. But sometimes, They don't just isolate. They divide intentionally, strategically. They make themselves look like your biggest supporter, your safe space, the one person who truly gets you. They encourage you to open up, to vent, to share your secrets and your fears. They nod with empathy, speak gently, and paint themselves as your sanctuary in a storm. But what you don't realize is this: every word you share becomes ammunition. They don't protect your pain. They store it. And then, bit by bit, they use it. They repeat your fears to others, twist your doubts into poison, and fan the flames of conflict. While keeping their own hands spotless, they thrive in the shadows. They don't scream or slander. They whisper. They give you that sideways glance, that just between us moment. They ask questions that sound harmless. Are you sure she has your back? He seemed a little off when you mentioned that. I'm just saying, watch yourself. Before you know it, you're questioning people you've loved for years. This isn't gossip. It isn't childish drama. This is a high-level form of control. By inserting themselves between you and others, they quietly become the authority, the interpreter, the filter. They decide who's good, who's dangerous, who you can trust, who you should pull away from. And over time, they become your gatekeeper. You don't just see others through your own eyes anymore. You see them through theirs. Make no mistake, this isn't about casual friendships. These manipulators aim for the heart, marriages, families, lifelong bonds. Anything deep enough to challenge their hold on you becomes a threat that must be weakened. Why do they do it? At their core, these people are insecure. They fear being left out. They fear being irrelevant. And the more connected you are to others, the less control they have. So they sow division to create dependence. You come to them for peace, but they only give you just enough clarity to keep the cycle going. They make themselves indispensable in a chaos they secretly fuel. It's predatory, and it feeds on trust, on love, on your most human vulnerabilities. But Stoic wisdom teaches us to be vigilant, not just about the world, but over our own minds and perceptions. Marcus Aurelius warned us not to let the opinions of others rule our judgment. Discipline in our perception. That's the armor. When you're dealing with subtle saboteurs like this, that armor is essential. And yes, it can be painful. To realize someone you trusted is not safe. To accept that a person you leaned on was quietly pulling you away from everyone else. But that's where your strength begins. You must step back and ask, does this person bring clarity or confusion? Do they resolve conflict or stir it up? Are they committed to my well-being or to my dependence on them? The solution isn't to fight them, expose them, or beat them at their own game. That only pulls you deeper into their drama. The Stoic response is different. It is calm. It is conscious. It is firm. You limit what you share. You refuse to let them triangulate you against others. You choose direct, honest communication with the people you care about. And if needed, you create distance. Not to punish. Not out of spite, but out of love. For your peace, your relationships, your integrity. Recognizing subtle harm is not a weakness. It is wisdom, and choosing to protect your bonds, to insist on transparency, to guard your heart, that is not selfish. That is strength. As we move into the next part, we'll talk about exactly how to set these boundaries, clearly, calmly, without apology, because protecting the truth of your closest relationships isn't just a personal choice. It's an act of quiet, powerful rebellion against manipulation, and a bold declaration of who you choose to be. We explored how subtle manipulators create division to control your world. But not all emotional harm comes in the form of gossip or triangulation. Some harm comes quietly in the form of love that drains you. Sign number 4. Emotional vampires. Have you ever met someone who felt like an answer to your prayers? A friend who finally understood you, a kind neighbor who always seemed available, a distant relative who, out of nowhere, became your closest ally. They entered your life when you were at your lowest, when you were grieving, exhausted, lonely, and offered exactly what you needed: a listening ear, a helping hand, the promise of loyalty that felt like balm to a raw heart. But then, something changed, not suddenly, not with betrayal or yelling. No, something far more subtle, far more difficult to spot. Their true nature didn't come out in storms. It leaked out in whispers. They began asking personal questions, not to help you grow or heal, but to collect data. They took mental notes of your pain, your fears, your weakest moments. And over time, what once felt like compassion started to feel like interrogation. I remember one woman, an elderly friend of mine. She met a man at church. He seemed like a gift from God, carried her groceries, called to check on her health, came over to fix things around the house just to make life easier. She told me, eyes glowing, that she felt blessed. Her husband had passed. She was lonely. This man was comfort. But as the months passed, I noticed something shift. She stopped talking to her children as often. She stopped attending family dinners. She told me, they don't understand me like he does. And if anyone questioned his intentions, she got defensive. He's the only one who's ever truly been there for me. But the truth was far darker. He had slowly, skillfully convinced her that her own family was selfish, that they didn't care. He isolated her so she would depend on him, and only him. This is how emotional predators work. They don't announce themselves with threats. They don't raise their voice or bare their teeth. They present themselves as the answer. They win your trust by making you feel seen, more seen than you felt in years. They become the first person you call when you're sad, and the one you celebrate with when good things happen. But with every secret you share, they gain leverage. And their real goal isn't to support you, it's to possess you, to make sure your loyalty belongs solely to them. And as your dependence deepens, so does their control. They begin criticizing the people who love you. They say those relationships are toxic. They plant doubts in your mind, about others, about yourself. They make you feel guilty for spending time with anyone but them. Psychologically, they operate on emotional scarcity. They drain your confidence, cut off other sources of love and support, and make themselves your only well. And once you're thirsty enough, you'll come back again and again for their approval. You begin apologizing for things you never did. You adjust your values to avoid upsetting them. You accept blame even when you know deep down you're not the one at fault. And while you're bending over backward trying to fix the relationship, they're not meeting you halfway. They have no interest in compromise. They only want your submission. It's a one-way exchange. And it leaves you drained, ashamed, and spiritually empty. The Stoics warned us of this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed by the color of its thoughts. And when someone pours doubt, fear, and self-hatred into your life day after day, they're not just changing your emotions. They're changing who you are." The Stoic path is not easy, but it is necessary. It requires brutal honesty, to admit the impact someone is having on you, to see the relationship not as you wish it was, but as it actually is. It means accepting that some people don't want healing. They don't want change. They don't want balance, and you cannot negotiate with someone who only wants control. So if you find yourself constantly walking on eggshells, feeling smaller, weaker, emptier when you're around them, that's not love. That's not friendship. That's predation. After recognizing the quiet damage caused by emotional predators, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and even for them is to step away. To reclaim your peace, your identity, your voice. The version of you that existed before their influence wrapped itself around your thoughts. And that's exactly what we'll cover next. How to create boundaries that truly protect you. Boundaries that guard your spirit without mirroring the same toxic manipulation you're trying to escape. Because let's be honest, you don't exist just to survive these relationships. You exist to be free. Sign number 5. They cause cringe, creeping discomfort, and constant dread. It's an uncomfortable but well-documented psychological truth. Anxiety and fear are contagious. They can spread from one person to another like a virus of the mind. You don't have to be naturally anxious to become consumed by worry. You only need to spend enough time around someone who thrives on fear, someone who speaks only in terms of doom, who always highlights the worst-case scenario until eventually your thoughts are no longer your own, and the scariest part? It doesn't happen all at once. It creeps in quietly. You won't even notice the exact moment when the change begins. You'll just wake up one day and feel smaller, less brave, less like yourself. You might even convince yourself it's just part of aging, that the shrinking of your confidence is just how life goes. But more often than not, it's not life. It's someone's influence that made you feel that way. These people don't arrive waving red flags. They arrive gently, quietly, as friends, as confidants, even as family, all claiming to have your best interests at heart. They don't give advice to help you grow. They offer poison wrapped in concern. They don't help you weigh your options. They emphasize the risks until you feel paralyzed. They don't celebrate your goals. They question your ability to reach them. And over time, their words take root. Self-doubt grows like a weed in your mind, wrapping around every decision you try to make. And here's the truth. They're not satisfied with your caution. They want your obedience. And for those of us who are naturally empathetic or conscientious, we're especially vulnerable. We've been taught to listen, to see other perspectives, to be fair. So when someone presents their fear as realism, we hesitate to call it out, even when it's slowly killing our hope. But this is not harmless pessimism. This is a form of psychological manipulation. It's a subtle, strategic way of reshaping your mind until you need their voice to navigate the world. A world that's only scary because they made it seem that way. And the longer you listen, the smaller you become. Your courage? Gone. Your willingness to dream? Crushed. You begin to apologize for wanting more. You question your instincts. You fear change, and worst of all, you might even forget you were ever different. But the Stoics warned us about this. They taught that our thoughts, more than anything else, are ours to guard, that the mind becomes colored by what we allow inside, just like white cloth takes on the color of the dye it soaks in. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed by the color of its thoughts." So when you absorb fear, worry, and doubt every day, it doesn't remain outside you. It soaks in. It stains your choices. It reshapes your view of the world. And this isn't just about your mood. This is about your freedom to choose. Because when you can no longer trust your instincts, when you stop pursuing what you love, when the world starts to feel like nothing but danger and loss, then it's time to pause. It's time to ask the hard question, whose voice have I let get too close to my heart? And what does it cost me? We ask the hard question, whose voice have you allowed too close to your heart? Now it's time to go even deeper, because the influence of these voices doesn't just shape your thoughts, it shapes your future. So ask yourself, are they truly helping you see the world as it is, honestly and clearly? Or are they keeping you afraid, small and dependent? Do their words set you free, or tighten the leash of approval and control? These are not easy questions. They require courage, because the answers, they often reveal betrayal dressed up as compassion, control disguised as concern, manipulation in the mask of love. But Stoicism offers a response that is neither bitter nor blind. The Stoic answer is not to harden your heart. It's not to become cold or numb. It's to become clear, to create strong, conscious boundaries around your mind, to decide with intention who gets to speak into your life, to discern which warnings come from real love, and which are just veiled attempts to keep you obedient. It means learning to separate prudence from paralysis, honesty from cruelty, caution from surrender, and above all, it means reclaiming your sacred right to assess, to decide, and to lead your own life as its rightful steward. So as we move forward, let's explore how to build that kind of clarity and inner strength together. Because you weren't born to merely survive under someone else's shadow. You were born to stand tall in your own light. You deserve peace. You deserve mental freedom. You deserve to think, choose, and live without someone constantly whispering poison in your ear. Let's get real for a moment. If even one of these signs felt a little too familiar, then it's time to stop giving people the benefit of the doubt when all they're doing is draining your soul. Like emotional vampires at an all-you-can-eat buffet. You weren't born to be someone's emotional punching bag. You weren't made to be a puppet, dancing for their approval or shrinking from their disappointment. You were born to breathe deeply, to walk freely, to think clearly, and to live with the kind of peace that doesn't ask for permission. Recognizing these devil-sent saboteurs, that's step one. And step two is walking them out of your life. Maybe that means removing them entirely. Or maybe it's just limiting access, drawing the line and looking them in the eye with a calm smile that says, "Nice try." But not today, Satan. If this hit home or struck a nerve, don't just sit there. Click subscribe and drop a comment telling me which sign hit you the hardest. Let's build something better here. A space where we name this nonsense out loud. Where we support each other in staying grounded, clear, and strong, because once you see the game, you never have to play it again. So until next time, stay vigilant, stay strong. And I'll see you in the next video, where we'll keep unmasking the darkness with a good laugh, a sharp truth, and the clarity you were always meant to have.